Do you think you really understand the person sleeping next to you? I thought so. I thought Marcus was my anchor in the chaos of Boston, my rock for 7 years, until a text message turned my perfect life into a perfectly staged lie. The trap was set. All I had to do was send a message to his mother, the mother he worships, and wait. The best show of my life was about to begin, and I didn't even need to buy a ticket. My name is Eliza. I'm 35 years old, and I am, by all accounts, exceptionally good at my job. As a data analytics director at Astra Futures, I find patterns in chaos. I build predictive models. My entire life is structured around logic, precision, and seeing the truth hidden in the noise. Tonight, however, I was just a wife. I sat alone at l'Orangerie, the kind of restaurant in Boston where the waiters refold your napkin if you stand up and the lighting is engineered to make everyone look like they are in a painting. A single candle flickered between two heavy wine glasses. One was full of a deep Cabernet I had ordered. The other was empty, waiting. It was our 7-year anniversary. Marcus, my charming, ambitious husband, was supposedly in Denver. A last-minute emergency, he had called to say, his voice full of the requisite financial manager frustration. A huge client is threatening to pull their portfolio. Baby, I have to get on a plane. I'll make it up to you. I promise. Celebrate for both of us. So I did. I wore the midnight blue silk dress he loved, the one that cost more than my first car. I ordered the wine we had on our honeymoon. I was playing the part of the perfect, understanding wife. I looked around at the other couples, their hands clasped over white linen, and felt that familiar, quiet pride. Ours was the marriage everyone wanted. Marcus was the husband my friends envied. He was supportive, endlessly romantic, the man who still brought me coffee in bed every weekend, who listened to my work anxieties, who always made me feel like the center of his universe. He was my rock. I raised my glass to his empty chair, a small, sad smile on my lips. The string quartet in the corner began a soft, familiar melody. It was perfect. A perfect, gilded cage. My phone vibrated on the table, the screen lighting up. It was a message from Chloe, my one and only truly close friend. I smiled, expecting a happy anniversary or a string of wine emojis. It was not a congratulatory text. It was a picture. The image was sharp, taken with a clarity that felt cruel. There was no mistaking him. It was Marcus, standing at the polished marble check-in desk of the Chamberlain Grand. The Chamberlain, a 5-star bastion of old-world luxury, was not at the airport. It was in Boston, a 15-minute drive from where I was sitting. He was not alone. His hand was resting possessively on the waist of a woman with waterfalls of blonde hair. She was laughing, tilting her head back, her profile exquisite. Even from the slightly pixelated distance of a phone camera, she was stunning, and I knew exactly who she was. The world did not spin. It simply stopped. The rich bouquet of the Cabernet vanished. The soaring notes of the violin became a distant, irritating screech. The warm murmur of the restaurant, the clinking of silver against porcelain, all of it just ceased to exist. There was only the bright, terrible light of the screen in my hand. I saw the timestamp. It was from 10 minutes ago. He was there, right now, while I sat here, dressed for him, celebrating a 7-year lie. The man who was supposed to be in Denver was checking into the city's most opulent hotel with another woman, my perfect husband, my rock, my lie. My breath caught, trapped in my chest. I zoomed in on the picture, my fingers numb. The woman, I knew her. Of course I knew her. Everyone in Boston knew that face, even if they had only seen it in glossy magazine spreads or from a distance at charity galas. She was Serafina Devereaux. This was not some random, meaningless affair. This was a catastrophic miscalculation. Serafina was not just a beautiful blonde. She was, for all practical purposes, a blue-chip asset. She was the wife of Nathaniel Devereaux, the sole heir to the entire Devereaux shipping empire, one of the oldest, wealthiest, and most notoriously private families in all of New England. The family was not run by Nathaniel, but by his mother, the formidable and terrifying matriarch, Madeline Devereaux. A woman like that did not have flings. She made strategic alliances, or she made devastating mistakes. And Marcus. My Marcus. The man who just last week was complaining that his bonus was insultingly low. The man who worried about our mortgage payments, who always seemed to be chasing a status just outside his grasp. What in God's name was he doing playing in that league? The pieces clicked into place with sickening precision. This was not a desperate, passionate mistake. This was a move, a dangerous, calculated, high-stakes gamble. He was using this woman, or being used by her. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was trying to cheat his way into a world far above his own, and he was using my stability, my loyalty, my perfect marriage as his safety net. The pain that had shattered me only moments before did not go away. It simply changed shape. It froze, crystallizing from a fragile, heartbreaking grief into something hard, cold, and heavy. It settled in my stomach like a block of ice. My phone vibrated again on the table. The sharp buzz against the linen made me jump. I looked at the screen. The name flashing was Judith, his mother, my mother-in-law, the woman who constantly praised me for being such a supportive, non-demanding wife. I swiped the message open. It was from Judith, written in Vietnamese, a language I understood perfectly from a college elective. As I translated it, the blood drained from my face. Eliza, dear, have you heard from Marcus? The whole family, Dad, me, his sister and her husband are in Boston for my surprise birthday. We can't reach him. He must be busy with that meeting in Denver. Right. I read the text once, then a second time. They were here. The entire family was in Boston, not in their quiet suburban home 2 hours away. They were here, right now, in this city, waiting to surprise the son who was supposed to be in Denver, the son who was, in fact, 15 minutes away, checking into a 5-star hotel with another man's wife. He hadn't just lied to me. He had lied to all of them. He had lied to his adoring mother, the woman he claimed to worship, on her birthday. The double cross was so audacious, so complete, that it was almost impressive. The sheer, towering arrogance of it. The waiter materialized at my elbow, his face a mask of professional concern. Madam, is everything all right? You haven't touched your wine. I looked up from the phone, my vision snapping into sharp focus. The candlelight, the soft music, the murmur of distant conversations, it all rushed back in. But I was no longer the woman who had walked in. The sad, devoted wife celebrating alone was gone. In her place sat a director of data analytics. My job was to find patterns in chaos, to predict outcomes, to identify the precise point of leverage. And I was looking at the most beautiful, chaotic data set of my entire life. A cold, calculating fury, purer than any emotion I had ever felt, washed over me. The pain was still there, but it was now a tool, a weapon. I gave the waiter a small, tight smile. My voice was perfectly even. Everything is wonderful. Thank you. I was just unexpectedly inspired. The waiter was still hovering, his brow furrowed with that unique blend of pity and impatience reserved for women dining alone on milestone evenings. I ignored him. The pieces were no longer just on the board. They were arranged in a perfect, damning pattern. Marcus was in this city. His entire family was in this city. He had told me he was in Denver. He had told them he was in Denver. He had constructed 2 separate, conflicting lies, believing, in his breathtaking arrogance, that the 2 worlds would never collide. He believed I would sit here, drink my anniversary wine, and mourn his absence. He believed his mother would wait patiently for his call. He had forgotten what I do for a living. I am a data analyst. I am paid a significant amount of money to find the flaw in the system, the weak point in the code, the single variable that, if tweaked, brings the entire structure crashing down. He was the flaw. His family was the variable. I took a deep, shuddering breath, but it was not a sob. It was a calibration. The emotional, heartbroken wife was a liability. I archived her. The Eliza that took over was the director, the strategist, the woman who had built complex predictive models from scraps of metadata. My first move was to confirm the target. I left the restaurant, my heels clicking on the pavement, and dialed the main number for the Chamberlain Grand. A smooth, professional voice answered. "Good evening. The Chamberlain Grand. How may I assist you?" I activated the voice I use for hostile negotiations. Crisp, cold, and carrying an implicit threat of incompetence on their part. "Good evening. This is Eliza Vance, executive assistant to Marcus Vance at Astra Futures. I am managing his corporate account for this trip, and there appears to be a significant billing error on our end. I need to confirm his room details immediately." A flurry of polite typing. "One moment, madam. Yes, I see Mr. Vance is registered with us." "I am aware," I snapped, my voice sharp. "I need the details. Our system shows a booking for a standard king. Your pre-authorization charge suggests something else entirely. I need the room number and the room type he was given. He is not to be disturbed. This is a back-office query." The receptionist, clearly intimidated by the phantom Astra Futures corporate account, folded instantly. "My apologies, madam. I see Mr. Marcus Vance and his wife are checked into the presidential suite, room 3412. My breath hitched. His wife. The words echoed in the sudden silence of my mind. He had registered Serafina Devereaux, another man's wife, as his wife, on our anniversary. The audacity was a black hole, sucking all the air from my lungs. For a single, terrifying second, the streetlights of Boston blurred. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white. The director Eliza shoved the wife Eliza back down into the dark. "The presidential suite," I repeated, my voice flat and icy. "I see. That is indeed a significant error. Thank you. You have confirmed what I needed to know." I hung up before she could offer another apology. Room 3412. I stood there on the sidewalk for a moment, the chill of the night air doing nothing to cool the sudden Arctic rage filling my veins. He was celebrating 7 years of our marriage in the most expensive suite in the city. Just not with me. I pulled up the text message from Judith, her anxious, hopeful query. He must be busy with that meeting in Denver. Right. Oh, Judith. You have no idea. My fingers were steady as I began to type my reply. I wrote in English. It was faster, cleaner, and left no room for misinterpretation. "Judith, I am so glad you are here safely. I have wonderful news." I paused, crafting the next line carefully. "Marcus's phone just died. He was desperately trying to call you. He just messed me from his work computer. He is so excited you are all here for your birthday." I could picture her, reading this, her face lighting up, surrounded by the rest of the adoring family. "He says he has a massive surprise for you. He has been planning this for months. He wants you to bring the entire family, Dad, his sister, everyone straight over. He said to hurry." And now, the coordinates, the payload. He is at the Chamberlain Grand. He booked a special suite just for the celebration. He is in the presidential suite, room 3412. He wants you all to come right up. I added one final touch, the flourish that would ensure they did not call the front desk, that they did not hesitate, the line that would make it her moment. He said, and I quote, "This is the birthday present Mom will never, ever forget." My thumb hovered over the send button. I thought of his hand on Serafina's waist. I thought of the empty chair at my table. I thought of the words, his wife. I pressed send. The trap was set. The bait was in the water. And the entire unsuspecting family was swimming right toward it. I stood on the cold Boston sidewalk, the phone feeling like a block of ice in my hand. My eyes were fixed on the message I had sent to Judith. It just said, "Delivered." I was waiting for the 2 blue check marks, the read receipt that would be the gunshot starting the race. The seconds stretched, and in that agonizing void, my mind did what it was trained to do. It began to reprocess the data. The last 6 months of my marriage, viewed through this new, brutal lens, were not a series of happy memories. They were a trail of red flags I had willfully ignored. The sudden business trips. There had been so many. An emergency client meeting in Chicago, a fire to put out in Atlanta, a conference he forgot to tell me about in Miami. I had packed his bags, kissed him goodbye at the door at 5 in the morning, and felt proud of my ambitious, hard-working husband. Now I saw them for what they were, a pattern of deception, a schedule built around her, not his job. Then there was the technology. About 4 months ago, he got a new phone and a new laptop, simultaneously. He kept them locked, always angled away from me. When I'd idly reached for his phone to check the time, he had snapped at me. "Don't, baby," he'd said, his voice instantly softening. "New company security protocols. They're cracking down. Everything is encrypted, even from me. I work in data. I direct a team at Astra Futures." I knew that was a flimsy excuse, but I accepted it, because to question it meant questioning everything. My own promotion, just 4 months ago. I had come home vibrating with excitement, holding a bottle of champagne. I had finally broken through, been named a director. It was the biggest achievement of my career. Marcus had kissed my forehead, his smile thin, his eyes already drifting back to that new, secure phone. "That's great, Eliza," he'd said, his voice flat. "Really, just try not to let it go to your head. Don't work so hard you forget about your family." At the time, I'd felt a prickle of disappointment, which I'd quickly buried in guilt. He was right, I'd told myself. He was just trying to keep me grounded. Now, I heard his words as a threat. "Don't get too smart. Don't look too close. Stay in your box." And Judith, his mother, her voice, always dripping with syrupy praise, echoed in my ears. I remembered a phone call from just last month. "I am just so lucky to have a daughter-in-law like you. Eliza," she had gushed, "you always support Marcus. You never try to compete with him or nag him. You just let him be the man. You are a truly perfect wife." A perfect wife, not a partner, not an equal, a perfect, supportive, non-competitive accessory. Her praise wasn't approval. It was maintenance. It was the verbal equivalent of polishing the bars of my cage, reminding me how pretty they were. A new, colder memory breached the surface, hitting me with the force of a physical blow. 3 months ago, Marcus had come home, his eyes bright with a feverish excitement I had mistaken for passion. He sat me down on the sofa, took both my hands, and pitched me. He had an opportunity, a private equity deal, a sure thing through one of his wealthiest clients. It was quiet, it was fast, and it would double our money in a year. He needed $75,000. I had hesitated. It was a lot of money. More than that, it was my money. It was the inheritance my grandmother had left me, a fund I kept separate, my one piece of true independence. He saw the hesitation and leaned in, his voice dropping to that intimate, persuasive whisper I used to love. "Eliza, this is it. This is the one that sets us up for life. This gets us the house on the Cape. You trust me, don't you? It's us against the world, baby." I did. I trusted him. 2 days later, I liquidated the funds and transferred $75,000 from my personal account into the Shell Corporation account he had provided. A sure thing. I stood on the sidewalk, my blood turning to ice. I knew, with the sickening certainty of a correct calculation, exactly where my inheritance had gone. The $75,000, my grandmother's money. I remembered how my hand had hovered over the mouse button before making the transfer. It had felt wrong, a deep, visceral wrongness that I had dismissed as my own selfishness, my own lack of trust. I was a perfect wife. After all, perfect wives weren't supposed to have separate accounts. But the hesitation had been strong enough that I'd sought reassurance. And who had I confided in not Chloe? Who would have told me I was insane? I had confided in Judith. I remembered the conversation perfectly. We were in her spotless, sun-drenched kitchen, the one she was so proud of. I was drinking tea, my hands wrapped around the warm mug, and I'd voiced my uncertainty. It's all of it. Judith. The money my grandmother left me. It feels wrong to just give it away on a sure thing. Judith had stopped wiping the counter. She had come over and sat down, placing her warm, soft hand over mine. Her eyes, Marcus's eyes, were filled with such gentle, maternal understanding. "Eliza, darling," she'd said, her voice a soft coo of manufactured sympathy. "Marriage is about building together. Of course you have your own wealth. That's wonderful. But Marcus is your husband. A man needs to feel supported. He needs to know his wife believes in his dreams, even if she's more successful in her own career." She squeezed my hand. "You have to trust him. You have to support his vision. That's what a true partnership is. Let him take this risk. Let him feel like he's providing for you, for your future. I guarantee you, Eliza, my son, he will never, ever let you down." It was her. The realization hit me not like a wave, but like a steel plate slamming into my chest, knocking all the air out of my body. It was her. She was the one who had pushed me over the edge. She had weaponized my trust, used my perfect wife status against me, and delivered the closing argument for his scam. The phone vibrated in my hand. I glanced down. The message to Judith now had 2 blue check marks. Read. The bomb was live. The countdown had begun, but the new information was still exploding in my head. Judith knew. This was not a mother-in-law blissfully ignorant of her son's flaws. This was an accomplice. This was an active participant in the fraud. She didn't just know about the affair, she was invested in it. That $75,000. It was not an investment. It was startup capital. It was the seed money for the new life Marcus was building with Serafina Devereaux. My inheritance, my grandmother's legacy, was paying for their champagne in the presidential suite. It was funding their escape plan. This was not the simple, sordid betrayal of a cheating husband. This was a conspiracy, a calculated multi-stage familial operation to defraud me. They had worked together. Marcus had provided the charm and the lie. Judith had provided the maternal, emotional leverage to close the deal. They had seen me as a resource, a well-funded, trusting, naive resource to be drained and, eventually, discarded. My rage was no longer emotional. It was a chemical reaction. It was no longer hot. It was incandescent. It burned with a cold, white, surgical precision. The pain was still there, but it was now fuel for an engine that had just come online. An engine that ran on pure analytical retribution. This was my world now. I was a data analyst, and I had just uncovered the root algorithm of their entire system. I would not just make him lose face. I would not just expose his affair. That was a game for amateurs. I would bankrupt them. I would destroy their reputation. I would dismantle their entire corrupt network, piece by piece, starting with the mother who had guaranteed he would never let me down. I would take back my money, and then I would take everything else they had. The trap I had set was no longer for a cheating husband. It was for a crime family. I didn't go back to the restaurant, the waiter, the wine. The anniversary dinner, they were artifacts from a different life. A life that had ended 30 minutes ago. I didn't drive to the Chamberlain Grand. Running into a hotel lobby screaming was for television. It was messy, emotional, and it gave them control. I was done being emotional. Instead, I drove to my office. The Astra Futures building was a dark glass spire in the financial district. The main lobby was empty, the marble floors echoing under my heels. The night guard looked up, surprised. Working late, Ms. Vance. Just tying up a few loose ends. Mike, I said, my voice perfectly level as I badged through the security turnstile. My office on the 32nd floor was dark. I didn't turn on the overhead lights. I sat in my ergonomic chair and looked out at the lights of Boston, a city I suddenly hated. My mind was a clean, cold machine. The objective was no longer to confront. The objective was to win. I dialed Chloe. She picked up on the first ring, her voice tight. Eliza, where are you? Are you okay? I'm at my office, I said. Chloe, you were right. But it's worse than an affair. It's financial. His mother is in on it. They conspired to steal from me. Silence on the other end. Then, a low, dangerous. What? I need everything you have, I said, my voice hardening. I don't just want photos. I need financials, bank transfers, shell corporations. I need to know everything about Serafina Devereaux, and I need to know everything about Marcus. I need a map of their entire operation. You're a cybersecurity expert. I need you to be one. Right now. There was a sound of furious, rapid typing. Consider me in, Chloe said, her voice dropping to the register she used when she was hunting. I'll start with the shell company he used for your money. Give me 1 hour. I'll find them. Eliza. I'll find every digital footprint they've ever left. I hung up. 1 call down. 1 to go. This was not a job for the suburban lawyer who had handled our mortgage. This was a job for the man my company keeps on a very expensive retainer for corporate warfare. I dialed the private number for Harrison Doyle, the most feared divorce and litigation attorney in Boston. He answered, his voice thick with sleep. Doyle. Harrison. It's Eliza Vance from Astra Futures. There was a pause. He was instantly awake. Eliza? This is a surprise. Is the company in trouble? I am, I said. I gave him the data points, stripped of all emotion. My husband, Marcus Vance, is currently at the Chamberlain Grand Room 3412 with Serafina Devereaux. 3 months ago, he and his mother, Judith Vance, conspired to defraud me of $75,000 of my personal inheritance. I have already sent the entire family to that hotel room under the pretense of a surprise party. They should be arriving about now. Doyle was silent for a long moment. I heard the faint sound of him pouring a drink. Ms. Vance, he said, his voice now sharp and focused. You have set a bomb off in the Devereaux family. You need to understand what's coming. The affair is leverage, but the Devereaux will crush you to protect their name. The photos are meaningless. The real case, the only thing that matters, is the fraud. I know, I said. I need proof. You need ironclad proof, he corrected. We need bank records. We need communication. We need the conspiracy. It's the only thing that will protect you from what Madeline Devereaux will do when she finds out. Find the money, Eliza. I hung up. Find the money. Where would he be that stupid? He was arrogant, but he was meticulous about his lies. He kept his new secure phone and laptop locked down. He wouldn't. My fingers froze over my keyboard. I logged into my company workstation. My eyes scanned my own file directory. And I remembered, 2 weeks ago, a Saturday, my new secure laptop, he had claimed, had crashed. A blue screen of death he couldn't fix. He was frantic. He had a presentation for a new client that was due Monday. He had begged me. He had borrowed my laptop, my Astra Futures executive laptop, the one I was sitting at right now. He had used it for maybe 4 hours, then given it back, thanking me, telling me I was a lifesaver. He wouldn't have been stupid enough to save his files on my main drive. I knew that, but he was arrogant. He thought he was smarter than me. He would have worked, deleted the files, and thought they were gone forever. He was a finance manager. He didn't know I was a data director. He didn't know that on my machine. Deleted is just a temporary state. My fingers flew. I didn't use the simple recycle bin. I opened a deep-level command prompt. accessed the admin tools, and initiated a full-spectrum file recovery scan on my own hard drive. I targeted the unallocated disk space, searching for any and all deleted fragments from that specific Saturday, 2 weeks prior. A progress bar appeared on my dark screen. I was no longer a wife. I was a digital archaeologist, and I was about to excavate the tomb he thought he had sealed forever. The green progress bar crawled across my monitor, agonizingly slow, 91%, 92. The silence of the 32nd floor was absolute, broken only by the quiet hum of my workstation and the frantic pounding in my chest. My desk phone lit up, flashing a silent, internal-only call. Chloe. I grabbed the receiver. "Talk to me." I got him. Chloe's voice was stripped of all warmth. It was the voice of a hunter. He registered a shell corporation, MS Ventures LLC. It was filed in Delaware 3 months ago. My blood went cold. 3 months. When? The filing date is exactly 2 days after you wired him that $75,000. Eliza, your inheritance was his seed money. I closed my eyes. Of course. Just long enough for the funds to clear. MS, I said, the sound barely a whisper. Marcus and Serafina. He's the sole signatory, Chloe continued, the sound of her typing a rapid-fire assault. I'm already digging for the bank accounts linked to it. He's sloppy. He used a public domain register. He wanted to be found by the right people. As she spoke, my monitor chimed. A small, polite pop-up window. Recovery process complete. Chloe, I have to go. I'll call you back. I hung up, my focus narrowing to the screen. The recovery scan had resurrected 14 deleted files. Most were junk-cached browser data, corrupted temp files. But one made my breath stop. Devereaux, pitch, V4, final, PPTX. He couldn't have. He wouldn't be that arrogant. He wouldn't have used my laptop for. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. I double-clicked the file. PowerPoint opened. My heart, which had been pounding, simply stopped. It ceased to beat. It was a full-blown business plan. The slide deck was sleek, professional, and branded with a logo I didn't recognize MS Ventures. The title slide read, A Strategic Logistics Solution for Devereaux Shipping. The second slide was an introduction, presented to Serafina Devereaux. I clicked to the third slide, The Framework for Our Future. My stomach lurched. This wasn't just a business plan. This was their escape plan, monetized. I kept clicking, my mind racing faster than the slides. I saw projections, financial models, timelines, and then I landed on slide 6. Identifying core inefficiencies and access points. I stared at the screen. I did not understand. Then, a cold dread, heavier and more profound than any I had ever known, washed over me. I recognized that chart. I hadn't just seen it before. I had made it. It was a proprietary data model from Astra Futures. It was the centerpiece of the confidential audit my team was currently conducting for Devereaux Shipping. My company was their trusted consultant, hired for millions to analyze their entire global logistics network and find its weaknesses. And Marcus had it. He had taken my work, my intellectual property, stolen from my own company. I clicked through the rest of the presentation, my horror giving way to a sickening, cold clarity. The plan was all there. He was using my company's confidential analysis, the one that showed Devereaux Shipping exactly where they were vulnerable to position his new shell company as the only solution. He was going to use my analysis to show them the holes, and then present MS Ventures as the private, boutique firm that could plug them. He wasn't just planning to steal my $75,000. He was planning to siphon millions from the Devereaux family, using my life's work as his crowbar. The roles were now crystal clear. Serafina was not just the mistress, she was the insider, the access point, the key to her own family's vault. Marcus was the architect, the brains of the fraud, and Judith was his accomplice, his fixer on the home front. the one who managed the perfect wife and secured the initial funding for their entire criminal enterprise. He wasn't just a cheater. He wasn't just a liar. He was a corporate spy. A white-collar criminal of the highest order. And the final devastating realization hit me. He had used my laptop, my Astra Futures, company-issued, secure laptop. He had used my machine to build his proposal, to commit industrial espionage. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had implicated me. He had made me an unwitting participant in his crime. My personal cell phone, sitting on the dark, polished wood of my desk, suddenly exploded. It was not a ring. It was a violent, vibrating seizure against the wood, lighting up the silent office with a name I now despised, Judith. I watched it rattle, the screen glaring. I did not move. I let it ring until it cut off, abruptly, and the screen went dark. A single heartbeat of silence, and then it lit up again, vibrating with the same panic. Marcus! I let that ring out, too. A moment later, his sister, Anna. I let them all go to voicemail. They were in the suite. The trap had sprung. The chaos I had initiated was now reaching its peak, miles away, in room 3412. While their world was ending, I was securing mine. My fingers were steady on my keyboard. I plugged a slim, encrypted external hard drive into my workstation. The icon appeared on my desktop. I dragged the PowerPoint file, the ghost from my hard drive, onto the secure drive. I right-clicked, eject, safe. Next, I opened a new, secure email client. I addressed it to Harrison Doyle. I attached the same presentation. I clicked the encryption toggle. My fingers were fast, precise. The subject line was one word ironclad. I hit send. My phone buzzed again, this time with a notification. A small red 3 had appeared over the voicemail icon. They were leaving evidence. I put the phone on speaker, keeping the volume low in the vast, empty office. I pressed play on the first one. Judith's voice tore through the silence. It was not the warm, syrupy, maternal coo she reserved for me. It was a raw, hysterical shriek, so high-pitched and full of panic that she was barely coherent. Eliza, what is this? What in God's name did you do? We are here. Oh my God. Marcus, he's with that woman. He's with... The whole family is here. The whole family. What did you do? A small, cold smile touched my lips. I listened to the entire 90-second performance of her fabricated shock, her terror not at the affair, but at the exposure. She was a gifted actress. I, however, was a data collector. I tapped the screen. Save audio file. This was not proof of her innocence. This was proof of her complicity. A recording of her frantic attempt to manage the narrative when her conspiracy had finally blown up in her face. As her voice screamed and looped in my memory, the screen was simultaneously flashing with a barrage of text messages from Marcus. They came in one after another, a digital avalanche of his panic. Where are you? Mom and Dad are here. What the hell is going on? Why are they here? This is a nightmare. Pick up your phone. And then, the one I was waiting for, the realization, the shift from confusion to accusation. You did this. I read the all-caps declaration, my face impassive. I did not reply. I simply archived the thread. I was done with them. My focus was now on a much bigger target. I opened my Astra Futures secure database. I was a director. I had high-level clearance. I pulled up the Devereaux shipping client file. It was a multi-million-dollar account, and it contained every contact point, every executive, every gatekeeper. I scrolled past the vice presidents, past the chief technology officer, past her son, Nathaniel. I found her, the matriarch, the one who held all the power, Madeline Devereaux, her private executive email address. I opened a new, clean message from my corporate account. My name, Eliza Vance, Director of Data Analytics, Astra Futures, was in the signature. I attached one file, Devereaux Pitch V4 Final PPTX. My fingers paused over the keyboard as I composed the subject line. It had to be perfect, not emotional, not accusatory. It had to be a corporate threat that no executive on Earth could ignore. Subject regarding the Astra Futures logistics consultancy and internal vulnerabilities. It was the digital equivalent of a sniper shot. It implicated her new consultant, my company, and it promised her a disaster inside her own. I shut down my workstation, logged out of the server, and took the elevator down 32 floors. I stepped out onto the street, my secure hard drive in my purse. My midnight blue silk anniversary dress felt like armor. I drove my car, a sensible, safe sedan, to the Chamberlain Grand. I did not speed. I did not run red lights. I felt a profound and terrifying calm. I was not a wife arriving to catch a husband. I was an executive arriving for a hostile takeover. The lobby was a masterpiece of contained chaos. The Chamberlain prided itself on discretion, but the scene before me was straining its 5-star standards. In one corner, near a large potted palm, stood the collateral damage. Marcus's father, his sister Anna, and her husband. They were huddled together, their faces pale and glistening with a sick, humiliated sheen. They looked like survivors of an explosion, unsure of where the bomb had come in from. In the center of the lobby, collapsed on a velvet Louis XIV sofa, was Judith. She was the epicenter of the drama, performing her grief for the entire room. Her face was buried in her hands, her shoulders heaving in theatrical sobs, a performance of a betrayed mother that was utterly unconvincing. And then there was Marcus. He was pacing a small, frantic circle near the concierge desk. His tie was loose, his hair, usually so perfectly coiffed, was sticking up in sweaty clumps. He was jabbing at his phone, no doubt calling me again, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. He looked cornered. He looked pathetic. I walked through the enormous, gilded front doors. The hotel was silent save for the sound of Judith's weeping and the frantic tapping of Marcus's designer shoes on the marble. My heels clicked, a sharp, rhythmic, metronomic sound that cut through the chaos. 1-2, 1-2. Marcus heard it first. His head snapped up, his eyes widened, and for a second, I saw a flicker of hope. He thought I was here to save him. Eliza, he hissed, rushing toward me, his hands outstretched. Eliza, thank God you have to fix this. You have to tell them. Tell my mother you got the room number wrong. Tell them it was a joke, a stupid, terrible joke. He reached for my arm. I moved past him as if he were a ghost, as if he were not there at all. I did not look at him. I did not slow my pace. I felt his hand graze my arm and then fall away, empty. I continued my steady, unhurried walk across the lobby until I was standing directly over the weeping woman on the sofa. I looked down at her. Judith. The sobs hitched, but she didn't look up. Judith, I said again, my voice clear and cold, cutting through her performance. It looks like your birthday surprise didn't go quite as planned. Did it? The weeping stopped. Instantly. It was as if a switch had been thrown. Her shoulders froze. Slowly. She raised her head. Her face, streaked with mascara, was not a mask of grief. It was a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. Her eyes, so like his, were reptilian. She knew. You, she whispered, her voice venomous. Ding! The sound of the central elevator arriving was quiet, but it commanded the room. The polished bronze doors slid open. Madeleine Devereaux stepped out. She was exactly as I had seen in pictures, tall, impossibly elegant in a severe black suit. Her gray hair pulled back in a chignon so tight it looked painful. Her face was absolutely devoid of emotion. She was flanked by 2 men in dark suits who were the size of refrigerators, and a third, paler, weaker-looking man who I instantly recognized as her son, Nathaniel. Seraphina's husband. Madeleine's eyes swept the lobby. They passed over Marcus, who had frozen mid-pace, and dismissed him as irrelevant. They passed over her daughter-in-law, Serafina, who was being quietly detained by hotel security near the bar, and registered nothing. They passed over the weeping Judith and the shell-shocked family. Then, her gaze landed on me. She did not wait. She crossed the lobby in the same way I had a direct, unwavering path of power. She stopped a few feet in front of me, ignoring my husband, his mother, and her own son. She looked me up and down, a quick, analytical assessment. "Ms. Vance," she asked. Her voice was low and carried absolute authority. "I am Madeline Devereaux. I believe you and I have a great deal to discuss. May we speak privately?" The hotel's private conference room was as silent and cold as a tomb. It was all dark wood and brushed steel. Harrison Doyle was already there, seated at the long table, along with another man I assumed was Madeline's counsel. Madeline Devereaux sat at the head of the table, her hands folded. Her son, Nathaniel, stood behind her, looking pale and useless. A hotel security guard opened the door and ushered in the three conspirators. Serafina was first, her beauty now brittle and sharp with fear. Marcus came next, his panic replaced by a sullen, angry defiance. Judith was last, her face pale and puffy, her eyes darting nervously around the room, finally landing on me with a look of pure poison. "Sit," Madeline said, not as a request. They sat at the far end of the table. Marcus immediately pointed a shaking finger at me. "She set me up," he yelled, his voice cracking. "This is insane! She's a jealous, vindictive. She set this all up because she's jealous of my success. She's crazy." I didn't say a word. I simply reached into my purse, took out my phone, and placed it on the polished table. I looked at Harrison, who nodded. I pressed play. Judith's voice, high-pitched, hysterical, and utterly damning, filled the silent room. "Eliza, what is this? What in God's name did you do? We are here." "Oh my God! Marcus, he's with that woman." I pressed stop. I looked at Judith. Her face, which had been pale, was now the color of ash. The surprise was fake. Everyone in the room knew it. "And now," I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the table, "let's discuss the $75,000. I slid a single piece of paper across the table to Harrison. He passed it to Madeline's lawyer. It was the bank statement from my inheritance account, showing the wire transfer to MS Ventures LLC. "Judith," I said, my eyes locking on hers, "you personally guaranteed me that your son would never let me down. You convinced me to make that investment. Was that before or after you knew he was planning to leave me?" Judith's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "That's enough," Madeline's lawyer said, his voice like gravel. He placed his own laptop on the table and turned the screen toward the end of the table. He clicked a file. The PowerPoint presentation. My presentation. Devereaux, pitch, V4, final, PPTX. "Mr. Vance," the lawyer continued, "you seem to be under the impression that this is about infidelity. It is not. This," he clicked to the slide showing my stolen data model, "is about industrial espionage. This is about a conspiracy to defraud Devereaux Shipping of millions of dollars using proprietary, stolen data from Astra Futures." Serafina, who had been watching the exchange like a cornered animal, saw her opening. She shot up from her chair. "He manipulated me, I didn't know." She cried, turning on Marcus, her eyes wide with faked innocence. "He told me this was a legitimate business. He said it was a way for me to get out of this marriage, to have something of my own. He told me the data was from a public source. I had no idea he stole it. I had no idea about Astra Futures. It was a brilliant performance. She was throwing him to the wolves to save herself." Marcus looked at her, his face a mask of utter betrayal. He had been outplayed by everyone. "Serafina, no, we planned this." "I planned nothing," she screamed back. He turned, desperate, to his last ally. "Mom, tell them how Eliza is." But Judith was staring at Madeline Devereaux, paralyzed by a fear far greater than her love for her son. She was silent. Marcus was alone, abandoned by his mistress and his mother, exposed under the harsh fluorescent lights. Madeline Devereaux finally spoke. "Seraphina," she said, her voice cutting through the air. "You will return home with your husband. You will not speak of this to anyone, ever. You will cooperate fully with our internal investigation. We will handle this, in discretion, as a family." She said the last word as if it tasted like acid. Seraphina crumpled back into her chair, silent and saved. Then, Madeline turned her cold, dead eyes to Marcus and Judith. "You two, however, are another matter. You conspired to defraud my company. You stole from your wife. You committed industrial espionage. You will not be handled as family." She gave a short, sharp nod to one of her security guards by the door. He opened it. 2 uniformed Boston police officers walked in. "Marcus Vance, Judith Vance," one of the officers said. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and violations of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act." Judith let out a small, strangled whimper. Marcus was completely, totally silent. The officers cuffed his hands behind his back, then did the same to his mother. As they were being led out of the room, Marcus stopped. He turned and looked at me. His eyes were not angry. They were not sad. They were filled with a profound, hollow, and absolute disbelief. He was the man who thought he was playing chess, only to find out he was a pawn on my board the entire time. He simply could not compute how I had done this. I looked back at him, my face as empty of emotion as Madeleine's. I held his gaze until the officer pulled him from the room. Then, I stood up, collected my phone, and put it in my purse. I nodded once to Harrison Doyle and once to Madeline Devereaux. I turned my back on the wreckage, walked out of the conference room, through the now quiet lobby, and out the gilded doors of the Chamberlain Grand, alone. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm so curious. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments so we can connect and share our thoughts. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it some extra love by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.